parents. We're going to talk today a little bit about discipline at home and what is called conscious discipline. Conscious discipline is something that a practice that I use in the classroom, and it was developed by Dr. Becky Bailey. She is an author, a former teacher, and an expert in the field of education and psychology, especially with our early childhood. So I'm going to share my screen because I do have a presentation. So bear with me while I pull that up and get our presentation up and running. There we go. So discipline at home, it is presented by me, but this is information that I have gathered from using conscious discipline by Dr. Becky Bailey. So we're going to go to our first slide, and we're going to talk a little bit about commands. When we're telling a child to do something or to not do something, which is typically what we're doing, I know as a mom and as a teacher, it is our first instinct to say, no running, or to say, no hitting, or to say, stop, and whatever it is that the child is doing. So we have to take that kind of out of our vocabulary because what's going on is that young children might not understand the negatives in the speech. So when a child is hearing those commands, the no, and then the command, a lot of times, and this is kind of crazy to think about, but a lot of times they don't hear the no part. They don't hear the stop. They just hear the verb hitting or running or pushing. So instead of shouting out no hitting or no running, we're going to practice using a command that tells them what to do. So hands to self instead of no hitting, or walking feet instead of no running. It does take a lot of practice to kind of change our vocabulary and the way that we say things. So instead of no pushing, you can say hands to self, or hands are for being nice, something to that effect. Hands to self is really what has been effective for me in the classroom and at home with my own kids. Hands to self. And using visuals. Use those visuals either with your own hands. If you have a printout of hands, a picture card, that's great too. But even just using your own hands and say hands to self or walking feet and model what you want them to see. Those types of commands are much easier for the child to understand than saying no hitting or no running. And it kind of helps them to build up their vocabulary as well. So that is the very first thing that I wanted to talk to you about, was the commanding, using just exactly what it is that you want them to do instead of what you don't want them to do, just so that it's a little bit easier. Next, we're going to talk about setting expectations. So we talked about not using those negatives, so saying exactly what we want them to do, but also having a set of rules in the home, a set of rules for when you're leaving the house. Setting rules in the home can be a little bit tricky. It's something that we don't really talk about, but we do have certain expectations. We might not always say, hey, when we're at the dinner table, we sit, or we don't think about having to say, we always do brush our teeth before bed, something simple like that. But there are certain rules in the home. So without your child, just you in your head, I want you to think, what are some rules, some hard and fast rules that I want to be followed in the home? It can be the no hitting. It can be no screaming. It can be no running. Okay, so we've got maybe those three. We're going to take those three and we're going to turn them into what we do want. So we said no hitting. So we're going to say hands to self. That's a rule. We can say no screaming. So inside voices. That's a rule. And we can say no running. So walking feet. So we're going to have hands to self. We're going to have our inside voices, and we're going to use walking feet when we're in the home. And the same thing goes for when we're going somewhere. If you're going to go to the store, for example, I know for me, some of my rules when my kids were much younger was I had the 2-foot rule. The kids could not be more than 2 feet away from me. It might be you have to hold hands. It might be you have to sit in the cart. Things like like that. What needs to happen though is you're going to have those in your head before you try to discipline your child about something. You have to talk to them about these rules and these expectations. So, expectations in the home, when would you talk about that? Talk about it when your child is calm, maybe at the beginning of the day, at the start of the day, when you're getting ready and you're getting dressed for the day. Just review. Hey, remember, during the day, we're going to use our hands for good. We're going to keep our hands to ourselves. Remember, we're going to use our inside voices, things like that. Just kind of setting that up for them so that they have those in their head. Um, Giving choices. If you want them to do a certain thing and they want to do something else, you can give choices. You can say, first, we're going to do this, and then we can do that. First you have to eat your breakfast, then you can watch TV. Or first you have to do your schoolwork, and then we can play on the video games. Giving those choices, letting them know, hey, if you want to do this, maybe you can do this, having that connections and going back and forth, give and take a little bit, and compromising. Follow through. If you say that you're going to do something, absolutely 100% you have to do it, good or bad, whether you meant it or not. Follow through. That follow through is everything, because that builds the trust. That builds your child's trust in you and knowing that you mean what you say. And be consistent. The rules should not change every day. You shouldn't have the rule one day it's this and the next day it's something else. So have those rules and your expectations, but have them be consistent all the way around. So those are some tips and tricks in getting started. And now we're going to talk about the 3 R's and the big E. So say your child did not follow the rules. Let's say your child hit somebody or they bit somebody, and you are going to have to implore some sort of discipline with your child. So the things to remember are the 3 R's and the big E. And these are things that I like to keep in mind. R, it should be related. The discipline should be related. It should be reasonable. It should be respectful. And there should be a moment to teach and to use empathy. We're going to go more into detail with what that means. So, related. There should be a logical cause and effect. The crime and the discipline should kind of be related. If you run with scissors, the punishment shouldn't be a timeout, for example, because maybe that's not the timeout and the scissors aren't really related. If you run with scissors, you lose the privilege of using scissors. That's relatable. If you hit a friend and then you get a spanking, hitting teaches hitting. So that to me, anyway, that's not a logical cause and effect. But if you hit a friend and then you have to take care of their injury with the help from an adult, that to me is a logical cause and effect. So at our house, I have 5 boys and 2 girls. And some of them are much older now, they're in college. But when they were younger, if somebody hit somebody else, I would help them get an ice pack and go and take care of who they hit. That is a logical cause and effect. If you hurt someone, you have to take care of them. And that goes back to empathy, teaching that empathy and teaching that you're going to help somebody and not hurt them and use your hands for good. Help children to see the connection. They're not always going to see that relationship between the cause and effect. Help them to see it and then model how to apologize. It is okay to give them the words. It's okay to tell them how to apologize or to give them the steps to an apology. They might not understand or mean it at first, but we're going to build up their vocabulary, build up their empathy, and build up their little bank of phrases and things that they can say to apologize. So that's the first R is related. The discipline should be related to the incident. The next one is respectful. I know that this can be very, very difficult, especially when you see your child doing something that you know that you've gone over and over and over and over again in your head, telling them to not do it. So respectful just means that we have to remember that we're the adults and they're the children. So make sure that you are composed. Make sure that you are calm and cool and collected before attempting the discipline part of what's going on. You never want what you're saying to come from anger. We don't want discipline to come from a place of anger or from frustration. So, those breathing strategies that we talked about with the kids, guess what? They work with adults too. Use those breathing strategies. Wait a minute. Just take a beat, step back from the situation, breathe, and then step in when you're ready. If you have another adult in the room with you, maybe they can help to look after the child while you go and compose yourself for a moment. Um, and not just a place from anger, but also sometimes, and I know that this is awful, but sometimes when our kids do something wrong, sometimes it's funny, and sometimes we laugh and we chuckle, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to encourage bad behavior. So take a minute, turn away, compose yourself until you're ready to deal with the situation. So and we don't want to scream at our kids or make them feel bad for what is going on. We want to make sure that we're composed and that we're being respectful of our children. Our next R is reasonable. So discipline should be age appropriate and time appropriate. And we should remember that discipline, the word discipline, means to teach. The word discipline does not mean to punish. This is not a punitive, mean, hurtful thing. We're trying to teach empathy. We're trying to teach, and it comes from a place of wanting our kids to be safe and healthy and helpful and responsible citizens. So age appropriate means a timeout for a child. It shouldn't be a whole day. That's not appropriate for a 3 or 4-year-old. Age appropriate means they shouldn't have to cook a dinner. That's not age appropriate. Time appropriate. So I did say that you need to take a moment to take a break so that you can compose yourself, but also make sure that it's happening, the discipline or the talking or whatever is going to happen is happening within a reasonable amount of time that the kid remembers what's going on. If you step away for an hour or 2 hours and you come back and you're trying to talk to them about something that happened an hour or 2 hours ago, they're not going to know what in the world you're talking about. If you're waiting for your spouse to come home because you want dad to talk to him about it instead of you, again, they're not going to know what's going on. It has to be very soon after the incident happened so that it's still fresh in their mind. Now, if your child is screaming and yelling and crying, that's not the right time either. You need to wait until and they're calm and you're calm and the situation is calm, and then you can approach the situation. So age appropriate, time appropriate, and remember that discipline means to teach, not punish. And our last part of it, the big E, is empathy. Allow your child to feel the feelings. We all have feelings. We talk about them every day in class. At the beginning of each class, we talk about our feelings feel and we talk about how we're feeling. It is okay to feel angry. It is okay to feel sleepy. It is okay to feel frustrated. Help to name those feelings. Talk about your feelings to help them to talk about how they're feeling. Help them to reflect. So let's say a little sister took all of the blocks and knocked them all down. when brother was trying to build them up. And he gets angry and he hits the little sister. That's a moment. That's an example of something that might have happened in your house. I know it's happened in my house before. So we don't want brother to hit little sister. So we say that command, hands to self, and then when the situation is calm, we talk to them and say, when little sister destroys your blocks, you feel angry, right? So we're helping them to kind of process what just happened, process what are you feeling? What's going on in this situation? Build connections. Remember, sister, maybe she felt like she wanted to help you play. What's a way that give them that practice the strategies? What can we do when we feel angry? What could we do in that situation? Give them some tools. Give them that. Maybe you can have you and sister can share the blocks. Maybe you can take turns using the blocks. Maybe help them learn how to play together instead of sister comes and knocks down the blocks, brother goes and hits sister, mom goes and spanks brother, and everybody's screaming. That's awful. That's an awful situation, and everybody's crying and everybody's screaming and everybody's upset. So try naming the emotion. Gather your composure as the adult. Remind them, remind big brother, hey, are you feeling angry because sister did this? What else can we do? And give them strategies of what they can do when they're feeling angry that has nothing to do with sister, too. You can say, hey, if you feel angry, instead of hitting your sister, you can go to a pillow. You can punch a pillow. A pillow doesn't have feelings. A pillow is just a pillow, right? You won't hurt yourself on the pillow. The pillow's not going to hit you back. But it's something that you can do to get that anger out because it is okay to feel angry sometimes. Maybe you can go over the breathing strategies and maybe you feel angry and you make a balloon and you until you feel silly and you're okay and you say, okay, now I can play with my little sister. So these are just a few tips, tricks, and ways to deal with discipline and misbehaviors in the home. I hope that it has been helpful to you. I am going to send you all a link as well. This resource, Conscious Discipline, there are some free resources in there that you can use. And I hope that you learned a lot and that you enjoyed this little presentation. I will see you guys next time.